I saved you a seat. Come on in, settle in. Let's just take a really slow, centering breath together. Welcome to today's Explainer. We're going to take a really intimate, grounded look at our inner lives today. You know, have you ever felt like you're just putting on this brave face, telling the whole world you're doing absolutely great, but underneath, something is just quietly aching? Well, today we're going to explore exactly why we do that, and more importantly, how we can find genuine strength, not by ignoring that ache, but by finally actually naming it. All right, let's dive right into this. I want you to think for a second about a time you were walking around with a small, sharp stone in your shoe. You felt it immediately, right? But maybe you were in a rush or you didn't want to inconvenience the people you were walking with. So what did you do? You didn't stop to take it out. Instead, you kind of just adjusted your stride. You told yourself, hey, it's not a big deal. I'm almost there. I can handle a little discomfort. And you literally limped for miles, totally exhausting your muscles, all just to avoid pausing for 10 seconds to admit you were in pain. It's exactly like the phrase goes. We walk with an emotional limp, and we tell everyone, including ourselves, that our stride is perfectly normal. Now here is the profound, foundational secret of our explainer today. Minimizing your pain does not make it disappear. Minimizing simply delays your healing. You see, we so often believe that pretending we're fine is just this neutral act. We think it's a sign of maturity, right? A badge of resilience, or just the responsible way to keep the peace. But actually, it's a delay tactic. Every single time we push down that discomfort just to maintain the illusion of being fine, we aren't getting rid of the stone in our shoe. We're just forcing our emotional muscles to dangerously overcompensate.
So we're looking at exactly why we minimize our pain, and we call this the gaslight reflex. Self-gaslighting is basically that immediate instinct to distort your own reality, minimize your feelings, or even shame yourself for having a completely normal human response. Think about it. When you feel genuinely hurt or overwhelmed or resentful, how quickly does your inner voice rush in to say, oh, I shouldn't feel this way, or I'm just being so dramatic? That reflex convinces you that your truth is a burden or that your completely normal reaction is somehow this massive flaw in your identity.
And this really brilliantly illustrates how avoidance is absolutely never neutral. Avoidance actually becomes this quiet architect, designing your life from the backseat. You might think you're just brushing off a bad day, but over time, avoidance builds these very specific, structured protective patterns. It can look like over-explaining, overperforming, or overachieving, just to prove to the world that you're okay. Or it looks like minimizing harm, brushing things off by saying, it really wasn't that bad. Sometimes it even shows up in these exhausting self-blame loops, where you just decide, I'm the problem, I always ruin things. And the crazy part, you begin to mistake these protective defense mechanisms for your actual personality. Now, one of the most subtle and honestly pervasive forms of this avoidance is the spiritual bypass. This is when you rely on high-minded phrases to just skip right over your actual human experience. You tell yourself, I'm fine, I'm blessed, I'm totally over it. But here's the catch. When you dismiss your own harm with these phrases, you leave your true pain completely unprocessed, and your protective patterns go completely unchallenged. You literally cannot heal a wound by simply declaring that you're grateful it isn't worse. Spiritual bypassing sounds a lot like growth, but it's actually just another way of refusing to look honestly in the mirror. Which brings us to a gentle coaching moment. I want you to just pause and listen to the echo of your own internal voice for a second. Where do you pretend that you are okay when you are fundamentally not? Where do you minimize your feelings? Maybe it's at work when a boundary gets crossed and you just smile right through it. Or maybe it's in a relationship where you swallow your own needs just to keep the peace. Whatever it is for you, recognize that acknowledging this is not a weakness. Naming it is the absolute first step to reclaiming your inner spark. So the absolutely crucial point here is breaking the cycle of shame. And we do that by shifting from distortion over to true alignment. Notice the contrast here. On one hand, you have the distortion, that gaslighting reflex that tells you, I really shouldn't feel this way, or I'm just being dramatic. That reflex is actively trying to attack your identity. But on the other hand, there's true alignment, recognizing that self-honesty is clarity, telling yourself, this is a normal human response. I really want to remind you of something foundational. Self-honesty is not drama. Owning your feelings and naming them accurately is the ultimate form of clarity. It's literally how we transition from hiding out of fear to leading ourselves with genuine compassion. Let's see how this builds, because clarity is what makes true alignment possible in the first place. I mean, ultimately, you cannot walk through a door you refuse to see, right? If you refuse to look in the mirror and acknowledge the reality of what you're actually experiencing, whether that's the frustration, the burnout, or the sadness, you just can't move past it. The pattern is just going to keep repeating itself. Seeing your own reality clearly without punishing yourself for it is the foundational requirement for any kind of growth or healing. You simply must be willing to see the door. Okay, so let's actually put this into practice. Our practice today is all about stopping that emotional limp and finally taking the stone out of your shoe. It only takes a few minutes, but it does require some profound courage. Let's walk through this together. Step 1. Let's catch the reflex in action. I want you to grab a notebook or just open a note on your phone and finish this prompt. I gaslight myself by saying, be radically honest here. Let the exact phrases you use to minimize your reality just sit right there on the page. Then, step 2, we're going to replace that distortion with what we call a truth sentence. Now, you don't need to announce your feelings to the world today. You don't need to go confront anyone. Your one small, brave step is simply to tell the truth to yourself in one safe place. Write this sentence down or record it in a private voice note. The truth is, I'm not fine about blank. Bring it out of the shadows. Speak it into existence. This little micro practice, this is how self-trust is actually built. As we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with this final resonant thought. You do not have to pretend to be strong to belong here. Clarity is kindness. So often we think that telling the truth about our pain makes us a burden. It doesn't. Giving yourself the permission to simply say, I am not fine, is literally one of the kindest, most grounding things you can do for your own nervous system. You don't have to punish yourself into becoming. You can practice your way there, starting with the quiet, grounding power of your own honest truth. So I'll leave you with this. What small, honest truth will you claim for yourself today? Thank you so much for joining me, and I really encourage you to take that brave step.